This is the Leo Clamaco podcast.
Welcome to the Leo Clamaco podcast. I'm your host, Leo. Today, we have a very special guest. I'm here with Toby Pasman. Toby is a neurophysiologist. We're going to discover exactly what that is because I have no idea. All I know is that Toby is the guy to go to if you want to fix your brain. Toby, thank you so much for being here today, man.
Leo, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on, man.
My pleasure, man. Let's get right into it. I want to know exactly what made you want to become a neurophysiologist.
So I really first wanted to get a handle on my own brain. I wanted to figure out why I was the way that I was, why I was experiencing the issues with socializing that I did. Back in high school, I was very socially anxious and awkward, and that was really the main area of my life that I really struggled with. You know, in school, I excelled in classes. It wasn't about going and taking the test that brought me anxiety. Right. It was going and actually having to talk to the different people, kids sitting next to me in the class, that brought me anxiety. Dating was a terrible situation. Terrible. Like, I just could not. I was like a chameleon. I was like that nice guy, people pleaser, always trying to like contort myself into whatever I thought that other people were going to like.
Gotcha.
Because I was insecure with myself.
Right.
And at some point I reached this conclusion that I wasn't deep down this anxious, awkward person. It was the result of how my brain was functioning on a biological level. So having that realization led me down the path of biohacking, neurohacking. So I started reading, Dave Asprey, Bulletproof blog back in high school when he first started writing that, and just learning about, putting butter in my coffee and putting sticky electrodes to my head. And it was some weird stuff at the time, people weren't really talking about it at all. But I started trying out some of the different things, and I actually really benefited from doing neurofeedback training. And neurofeedback's where you have electrodes hooked up to your head that are measuring the brainwave activity that your brain's generating, these electrical rhythms.
Okay.
You can actually measure those and train your brain to have healthier brainwave activity.
Very interesting.
That was kind of my introduction, and then I started working at a research lab and just doing a deep dive into the whole space. But neurophysiology, what it really is, in my opinion, is applying the neuroscience. So basically taking the findings from research labs, what we find, and actually applying that to improve our lives as entrepreneurs, as business people, as husbands, as wives,
right.
Really bettering ourselves by applying the neuroscience.
So basically, scientists do the experiments and the data, and you implement them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Got it.
I was doing some of the research, but I got more interested in like how do I actually apply these to real people's lives? Because we were just doing the brain scans. It was cool, it was interesting, but it wasn't actually translating into improving people. It was just measuring. So I was like, ending college, I was left with the question of like, all right, now that we know what the brain is doing, which areas may be misfiring, what do we actually do about that? So that's what led me into, neurofeedback, neurostimulation, some of the other modalities that I work with now. But basically, it all comes down to the brain is plastic. Our brains are capable of rewiring themselves, and through the use
What do you mean by the brain is plastic? What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, so connections within our brain is constantly changing and adapting. So they talk about, there's the expression neurons that fire together, wire together, meaning if you're trying to learn a new language or practice a skill, your brain's devoting more and more resources to figuring that out, and your brain actually changes, on a physical level, as well as a functional level, your brain is changing. So if we can take where you're at right now and harness that plasticity and enable the brain to change in a positive way, we can improve mental health issues, we can improve cognitive performance. So athletes, executives, different people who maybe they have pretty decent brain functioning, they're just looking to get to that next level.
Right. They
can harness neuroplasticity to get themselves there. So think of it in the same way like your body is plastic, in the sense of if you're to go and you wanna get bigger muscles at the gym, you go and you train really hard, you work out, even if nothing's wrong too, right? That's a big distinction.
For sure.
With mental health or cognitive issues, people are usually only going to check their brain out or work on their brain when they have issues.
Right.
So,
but kind of like going to the doctors.
Going to the doctor. But think about the way people view physical, like working our body out. Even if you don't have a shoulder injury,
Right.
It's still beneficial to train
For
and
sure.
improve the
It's proactive, not reactive.
So that's exactly my perspective when it comes to the brain. Be proactive, improve things before waiting to, for things to really decline.
Very cool. Let me ask you a question. Where did you grow up?
Eugene, Oregon.
Eugene, Oregon.
Tracktown, USA.
Very cool. I'm wondering, does nature and nurture, where does that play a role within the brain and how we're put together, right? So, I'm trying to understand how much of an effect is nature and nurture within our brain and how that programs us into who we are.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think it's something that we all have different genetics that predispose us to, different mental health issues or lack thereof,
Right.
as well as Alzheimer's. There's genetic variants that make us a lot more likely to have neurodegenerative disorders
Right.
as we age. But what people miss about genetics is the whole field of epigenetics, where we can actually change and modify the expression of our genes with exercise, with what we eat, all the things that we actually do have in our control. So I think genetics obviously plays a big factor. There's people that are genetically predisposed to developing things like schizophrenia,
Right.
or psychosis. And, if that's
or running faster, bigger
running
muscles,
faster.
or something like that, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So, I think where people get stuck is thinking, oh, well, I'm depressed. I guess, my dad was depressed. His dad was depressed. So I guess I just can't do anything about it. I'm
Right.
just going to be depressed. And it's like there might be a genetic predisposition to depression, but that doesn't mean you can't do things proactively and take steps to
modify
counteract.
it. Right.
Exactly.
What about location, where you come from? How much does that have an effect on your brain and the makeup of it?
Man, there's so many things. I mean, I think about like the actual environment in terms of like, you think about like growing up in a city versus like out in nature. We know
Right.
there's so many beneficial effects of just being out in nature. And I feel so great whenever I go somewhere, go on a camping trip, right?
Hiking
You're just
or
completely
something like that.
disconnected,
Yep.
hiking. We actually know that, forest bathing, it's like a Japanese term, just basically going out in nature, exposing ourselves to the elements. It actually can really increase blood flow to the brain, like dramatically, like 100%, like doubling blood flow to the brain.
I've heard that if you go barefoot to the woods
Grounding too.
or to the beach,
Yeah.
right? It grounds you to the earth.
Yeah. So it's like people that do grow up in cities that have all of the smog and pollution and just constant noise. It's like there is a higher incidence of mental health issues. So I think just that environment, and then also when it comes to like our social environment, who we grew up around. I really think that we are in a large way like the average of the 5 people that we surround ourselves with the most.
100%.
So
I live by that.
yeah. So I think if we grow up around people who are positive, who develop within us that, you heard about like the growth versus fixed mindsets.
Yes.
Right. Where like some people, and when it comes to the brains, like some people think, oh, I'm just stuck with my current intelligence.
One-dimensional.
I can't improve things. One-dimensional. Whereas other people have the belief that our brain, their intelligence is fluid, that they can
Right.
learn new skills, that they can develop. And they actually have found within research that people who believe that their intelligence is fixed, that they can't change, it really is.
Yeah. They're
The
both
mind
right.
is so exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
which do you want to believe? So I think the people in our lives that really like creates a lot of that subconscious wiring, before we're at the age where we can
Right.
consciously determine what thoughts we want to believe and reject. We're programmed because we just believe whatever our parents say, whatever society tells us. We just
Media.
take that media, we just take
Yep.
it as a fact. So I think once we start thinking for ourselves and being able to, accept this notion and reject this other idea, that really plays a big role in how our brains develop.
One of my favorite quotes is, if you think you can or if you think you can't, either way, you're right.
So true.
You know?
That's so true.
It's so true.
Yeah.
The power of belief is something that a lot of people take for granted.
Yeah. No, I completely am with you, man. Like I think it's something that being like having a science background, it's like I want to always have like research studies to say that this is positive to do.
Right.
Like I grew up very scientific minded, but at the same time, like faith is like the idea of like having belief in something that you don't yet see as,
Right.
you can't have proof yet,
Right.
but you believe that it's possible. And it's like everything created in this world, it started with an idea, with someone that had a belief that that idea could turn into something, and they put in the hard work and dedication, persistence to turn that idea into something tangible in the world.
Yeah.
But it's like if they didn't have that initial belief, that was, they're not gonna last.
No, they're not. They're really not. Where'd you go to school? What school did you go to?
University of Oregon. Yeah. Went to school in my hometown. So it was like definitely when I finished school, I was like totally needing a change. So got as far away from there as possible, literally Oregon to Florida.
Nice.
And yeah, this was the dream. Like I tell people, like growing up in Oregon, we all fantasize about coming to California or Florida. This is the promised land here for us. So,
How long you been here in Florida?
since 2019,
Nice. I've been here since 2020.
2020.
Yeah.
And you came from New York.
Came from New York.
Yeah. So we
Yeah.
both escaped the cold.
Oh, yeah, man.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
I had to get out of there.
That's another thing that makes a huge impact, like the
Huge.
vitamin D, sunshine. I mean,
Yes.
everyone feels way better going to the beach all day or just getting out.
You're just happier seeing the sun.
Yeah.
You really are.
And biologically, you have more, higher levels of different neurochemicals like serotonin and dopamine that allow us to feel happy and be driven and motivated. And also talking about testosterone, sunshine, getting
That's
that
a big
vitamin D.
one.
Yep. So people that get, guys especially, that get really depressed, in cold weather climates where you're not getting a lot of sunshine, a big part is testosterone.
Wow. That's why there are a lot of guys doing TRT now.
Yeah.
That thing's huge.
And all the the xenoestrogens, all the crap that's in our environment, the plastics, BPA, and all that stuff, all endocrine disruptors, all these things. It's like almost like our world is like set out to kind of wreck us biologically in a way.
I don't know if it's the world or more society.
More society. Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
Some parts of the world, it's not like that. It's our, yeah.
It's
Thank you for
humans.
the correction.
It's humans.
Yes.
Humans are the issue.
Correct. The world didn't intend this to
But we're
happen.
also the answer.
Yeah, true that.
Paint me a picture. So, what'd you do after college? How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so after college, I started working at a peak performance center outside of Seattle. So this was a neuroscience center. It was like a 5-day retreat where it was mostly business executives, athletes, some Hollywood guys that would come in. It was like $15K for this 5-day retreat.
Okay.
That people would come in. And it was a super, super unique idea. I mean, it was a super cool experience just working with these high achievers and actually leveraging the stuff that I had learned about in the research lab, but now actually applying it to real world people.
Right.
So that experience really showed me kind of the landscape of what people were doing in the peak performance space and in the applied neuroscience space. And from there, I just did a real deep dive. So I came out to Florida partly for the sun, but in terms of professionally, I had the opportunity to get mentored by one of the top neuroscientists in my specific field.
Mentoring's the best thing, man.
And honestly,
It really
man,
is.
it was somehow just intuitively I knew it was taking a pay cut. It's not like I was making crazy money out of college anyway, but it was $20,000 less to come out here and for the job in Florida. But it was internally I knew that building those skills, learning from someone who's an expert in the field, that was going to pay off huge dividends down the road.
Let me change that frame for you. I don't agree that it was 20K less. I think it was a 20K investment.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
most mentors would probably charge you between 15 and 20K for the experience that you got.
That's so true.
So literally, you were investing 20K to make $1 million in the back end.
Yeah, that's a
You know
great
what
way
I
to
mean?
look at it.
Yeah. So everything in life is an investment to your future.
Yeah.
I don't believe that setbacks or failures are negative. I think if you know how to extract the lesson from it, you turn it into a positive.
And that's the thing is that you don't think it's a negative, so it isn't a negative, right? Whereas other
Right.
people who view setbacks as failures and then they never try
Holds
again,
them back.
then it is true for them.
Yeah,
It goes back
100%.
to what we were just saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I I wanted to ask you, I can't remember exactly what I wanted to say right now. Oh, yes. What would have been the expectation of someone going into that 15K program, right? What should they expect to know by going through that process and leaving?
There were different expectations, but I would say people were somehow stuck within their life, whether that was personally, professionally. They knew what they maybe were once capable of and weren't at that level, or they're having a lot of decisions that they had to make in their life. They maybe were aware that they were in the wrong relationship or the wrong job, and they were seeking answers. So I think that a lot of people came in for that personal growth aspect, as well as just being able to sharpen their cognitive abilities. And in terms of what people got out of it, I think it was, really shedding a lot of those limitations that, like we were talking about before, things that maybe had just been programmed into us growing up by society, by our parents. Going in with neurofeedback can really allow us to access some of those subconscious brainwave patterns where we can shed some of those limiting beliefs, rewire our brain in a proactive way that's going to be more empowering to get us to where we want to go. So oftentimes I think it's what's preventing people from living the optimal, they're performing to their potential. I think oftentimes it is past experiences where they have some kind of limiting belief, they have some kind of hesitation or doubt that they can achieve what their biggest dream that they want to do. So people were really coming in, I think, with that awareness that something was holding them back. Maybe they didn't know exactly what it was, but they knew that they had to figure that out in order to get to the next level.
How measurable is this?
Very measurable. I mean, in terms of, that's what I think super cool about this is that psychology, that's what I studied in college. It was a bit too subjective, right? Where it's like we rely, and it's still to this day, like if you're to go into a psychiatrist, you tell them your symptoms that you're dealing with, they give you a diagnosis, they give usually a pill, a medication to solve that. It's very linear, right?
Yeah.
And it relies completely on subjective measures.
Yeah.
Like Dr. Daniel Amen, who's a famous psychiatrist and neuroscientist, talks about how psychiatry, they're the only medical professionals that don't actually examine the organ in which they're treating, right? If you were to have a heart issue and you just go into a cardiologist and they just like ask you, oh, how's your heart feeling? Like, how's your chest? Like, no, they're going to slap on some electrodes, some EKG. They're going to do a stress test. They're going to actually evaluate the functioning of your heart. So that lack of objectivity really drew me away from psychology. I really was interested in improving the mind, but being able to actually quantify what's going on in someone's brain.
Got it.
So that's where the neuroscience comes into play. You can actually evaluate with doing brain scans. You can actually measure what someone's brain is doing on an electrical level. You can see areas of their brain that are underactive, other areas that are overactive.
You wanted the root cause. You wanted to get down to the nitty gritty.
And that the thing is, there's so many different subtypes of each condition or of why you might be struggling with focus or dealing with stress. For one person, it could be their frontal lobes. The other person, it could be the parietal lobe. So if you don't actually do a brain scan and measure, you're kind of just shooting in the dark. So that's why everything that I do is data-driven, measuring what's going on, establishing a baseline, and then we put together the personalized training protocol based on that, and then we're able to reevaluate to see, all right, were these changes, are these this
successful?
Was it successful?
Right.
So that's what I really love about what I do is that it is providing that objective, data-driven approach to a field that is largely composed of just subjective experiences.
That's really cool. I interviewed a psychiatrist.
Okay.
His name was Dr. Fred Moss. Not sure if you've heard of him.
I think I've interviewed him actually.
Really?
Yeah.
He's a very interesting guy. He was a psychiatrist for a very long time. And then he got to a place where he was fed up with it. And now he basically teaches people on how to get off their pills.
Yep.
He did a complete 180 in his entire philosophy of what he was doing originally. And I think he came to that same conclusion that you did, that I'm not really diagnosing the actual problem. I'm just giving you a Band-Aid to help you keep going.
Yeah.
So he wanted to help people, peel those layers that we create, especially that pills create, to get down to the root issue to solve that problem.
Right.
But yeah, I find that very interesting how that entire field works backwards.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's archaic when we think about it's like there's basically been no changes in the way that, I mean, there's new drugs, but still the overall model hasn't really changed in the last century.
Right.
So whereas any other medical field there's leaps and bounds of progress, but psychiatry has really stayed the same for the most part. And I think really we're at a time where people have woken up, partly due to the opioid epidemic, but, also with other psychiatric medications, people are seeing that even if these things are helping temporarily, which sometimes they do, for a good chunk of people they don't, but it's coming at a cost regardless. So when you alter and play with your brain chemistry with taking something externally, that isn't going to result in the getting to the very root cause, which I think most people are interested in. What is actually driving their depression? What's driving their anxiety?
What's the cause, right?
What's the cause?
Would you say that big pharma is the key player here that keeps it all going?
Yeah, I mean, I think they have a stronghold over the doctors. That's how the system works. And I think, I think it's just the lack of personalization, where it makes the most sense to simplify things and put people into a specific label, give them a diagnosis, and then there's a pill approved to treat that thing. Easy money. But then again, also, I think it's how our society sort of thinks about things in terms of expecting quick fixes, people not wanting to put in the actual work, right? So it's like if you pop a pill of Adderall and you're instantly going to feel super focused and motivated and driven, rather than doing something like neurofeedback, which is a process that takes time and you gradually start seeing more and more improvements.
You have no idea how many entrepreneurs / influencers I know who are on Adderall all day.
Yeah.
All fucking day.
Yep.
Like they pop it like Skittles.
Yeah.
Like some of them can't focus without it.
Yep. Well, and that's the thing. It's like when you take something like Adderall, it's like flooding your brain with all these pleasurable neurochemicals that allow you to focus and feel motivated. But then when when it runs out, you're actually left in a worse spot than you started off with.
Yeah.
Because Adderall is causing the release of all of these. It's causing all the chemicals that are stored within your brain right now. All those chemicals flood out. So then
it's replacing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you're left kind of with this barren landscape of your brain where you don't have the neurochemicals to feel focused, to be motivated. So then you need to keep taking it or take more of it in order to get the same. And that's like a lot of drugs of abuse work in that same way.
For sure.
Yep.
In your world, how would someone that is looking to have that natural Adderall effect, what kind of work needs to be done for them to, enhance that ability within them?
Yeah. So I think a lot of the things people like to talk about, all the, and me included, I love the cool stuff, the different technologies, the nootropics. But when it comes down to like the just dialing in on the basics, people eating, a healthy diet, the nutrition,
the basic shit in
sleep,
life,
exercise,
yes,
that's gonna, in my opinion, make the greatest impact on how people's brains function. And then maybe that gets you 80%, 90%.
Probably food number one, right? Sleep number two.
Yeah.
And then working out number three.
Yeah.
In that order, would you say?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable to say that. I mean, I think, when it comes to like food, I think like people that are constantly eating lots of carbs, processed food, sugars, it's kind of slowing their brain down. It's not the brain
and your
loves,
body
and your body.
Yeah.
We actually, always have lived with periods of feast and famine, so it's like intermittent fasting or longer fasts are really beneficial for brain health, as well as like we now know kind of that whole food pyramid, the way we were kind of instructed to eat and that fats are bad. That's all kind of been flipped on its head.
Right.
We now know that, the brain's composed about 60% of fat. So in order to actually support optimal brain health, you need healthy fats like avocados, coconut oil, olive oil,
But
butter.
I think that's key. Healthy fats.
Healthy fats. No,
Right.
I'm not talking about McDonald's.
That's the key word
healthy.
here.
Yeah, people want to forget the health. Yeah, there's
they
good
just heard
fats.
fats. Oh, okay, McDonald's is good.
Yeah.
No, not quite yet.
Exactly. Just like everything, there's healthy fats, there's bad fats.
Right.
So the brain loves those healthy fats. And then in terms of, protein, so a lot of our neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, these are formed from amino acids that we're getting from protein.
Right.
So if we're not getting good, high quality protein, we're literally not giving our body the chance to manufacture the different neurochemicals that it needs to have all of our optimal cognitive functions.
Wow.
Nutrition is huge when it comes to the brain.
Huge. Really is. Let me change focus a little bit. I've done a lot of hypnosis in my life. I had a mentor who was a certified hypnotist, and he helped both me and my wife get rid of a lot of trauma, a lot of past karma that we were holding on to that we were able to let go. What do you think about that? And how do you think that is similar or different to what you do?
I think there's a lot of overlap. It's kind of tapping into those slower brain waves. When you get into a hypnotic state, just a brief overview on the brain waves. Our normal default state, like you and I having this interaction right now, we're probably mostly producing beta waves. Betas are focused, alert, awake, kind of default consciousness.
Right.
Whereas hypnosis, our brain slows down into alpha and then into theta. So theta is that real kind of bridge between the conscious and unconscious,
Right.
where a lot of that repressed, buried material lies. So that's the power of getting into these deeper states, whether you do that through neurofeedback, which you can do through technology that I work with, but also with hypnosis, where you're getting and accessing those deeper, slower brainwave patterns, and then they're sort of prompting you to kind of process and maybe reframe and rewire this material. You can't get there on a conscious level. That's why a lot of people that do talk therapy still are stuck. Maybe they have a better awareness of their issues and but
it's not dealt with.
It's not dealt with. Whereas hypnosis, or I think neurofeedback, these are able to really get to the root cause because they tap into our subconscious mind. And we know that about 95% of our brain activity is being driven by the subconscious. So it's like that. If you've ever seen that like tip the iceberg analogy, where 5% at the very tip is the conscious mind, and then everything buried beneath under the water, that's all subconscious. So hypnosis, neurofeedback, psychedelics, I think these are all tools to really do some psychological surgery, get into those deeper, slower states, and really reprogram our mind.
Got it. So I'm really starting to understand exactly what you do. So you work with equipment that help you get to a certain state, that help you change your brain in a sense of rewiring it to remove trauma and to improve whatever needs to be improved.
Exactly. So there's different protocol, different neurofeedback protocols. You can also do ones that are more so focused, like enhancing people's ability to focus and sharpen attention. So those are more so working on the conscious mind. And for people who struggle with ADHD, the people who are popping all the Adderall, they usually have deficits of beta waves. So if you help with neurofeedback, improve their ability to get into that focus state, that's going to really enhance, their cognition. Whereas other people who maybe deal with a lot of anxiety, PTSD, insomnia, they oftentimes actually have an opposite pattern where they have an excess production of those faster beta waves. They're stuck in that state of high alertness in that fight or flight response. So they do really well getting into that really slow kind of hypnotic like state. So it's very individualized based on each person, what their goals are, along with the neurophysiology data that we collect.
Right.
But there's definitely a good amount of people where we do those slower state training that you can definitely compare to hypnosis.
Very, very cool. Are you able to completely cure people, or is this something that gets you going on the right path? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. It's a great question. I mean, I think I don't use the words like diagnose and cure too much, like when it comes to the brain or into what I do, but I do believe that different issues, people that struggle with anxiety, depression, all these different things, they're the result, as I was saying before, of my own social anxiety, realizing that that was the result of how my brain was functioning on a
Right.
biological level. So based on that, if we can modify how people's brains are functioning and we can correct whatever's causing people to feel anxious, to not be able to focus, to feel depressed, and we can actually restore optimal brain functioning, people are able to shed all sorts of different issues like that. So I think that people may be dealing with something based on, past head injuries, emotional trauma, inflammation, all excess stress. There's
Right.
all different causes, but when you're able to really get to the root cause of the issue, I think that so many people who've been told that they have to just cope with the symptoms of depression or PTSD, that they're always going to have to deal with them.
That it is what it is, right?
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And I strongly believe that that is not the case, but people need to actually know what's going on, be able to actually restore functionality to the areas of their brain that are driving those symptoms. But when they do so, I think so much is able to be changed and, cured, even though I don't unlocked. Yes. Yeah.
Very, very cool. I want to ask you a little bit about autism.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I, we own a therapy agency for kids with autism. And I'm just curious to know, from your perspective, first, what's the difference between the brain of somebody with autism and someone that doesn't have autism? And is there a way using your tools to modify their brain so it can get more like someone who does not have autism? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what we know in terms of looking at like the neurology of people with autism versus those who don't have it, people with autism actually have a lot of hyperconnectivity within the brain. So there's a lot of different areas that are overly communicating with other areas. So in a lot of ways, that can actually result in people like getting like hyper focused on specific things, right? Where
Does that mean that other parts aren't as connected?
correct, like more to do with like social functioning. There's
Got
oftentimes
it.
like impaired social functions.
That makes total sense.
So some areas are kind of underdeveloped, whereas other areas, like as you probably know way better than I, like where some autistic individuals get like hyper focused on specific subjects, they
Yep.
can tell you everything there is to know about whatever
They get obsessed with it.
they get obsessed.
Yeah.
So in some ways, it's like almost like a superpower in a sense, but then
Right.
it's also coming at the cost of social impairment, other kind of developmental issues.
Right.
So I think it's something that when we also look at like the chemical perspective, people with autism, there's oftentimes that deficit in oxytocin, that chemical that causes us to feel kind of the connection, bonding, trust. So people with autism,
Very
that often,
important to live a social life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, it's involved in like infant mother, bonding,
Right.
but then also just developing and being able to like make eye contact with other people, feel what they're feeling, like the mirror neuron system in the brain where, I could sort of sense if you're starting to make a certain face and I can tell you're getting upset, I'm
Right.
going to feel a certain type of way. Whereas oftentimes people with autism have issues being able to perceive how other people are feeling, being able
Right.
to interpret those emotions. So there's a lot of issues in terms of on a neurological level, what's driving that. I'm not an expert by any means in terms of there's other people that neurophysiologists that specialize in working with kids with autism.
Mm-hmm.
But just from my understanding, utilizing these same tools like neurofeedback, you can specifically help target, areas like areas of the brain that are really important for social functioning
And develop them.
because
Wow.
of that plasticity. So going back to the plasticity where the person with autism, maybe their brain right now, those areas aren't very developed,
Right.
but by the use of training them and really activating those areas, it's a muscle that can be grown. I mean, think about like with the
very cool.
pandemic, right? With the pandemic, like when everyone was isolated socially, and then you heard about like all people having all these issues socializing and these kids like unable to like function and socialize.
Yeah.
And it's a muscle. So it's like if you're not exercising that, people weren't like a lot of people were just not around people for 2-3 years.
It's crazy how that happened.
Yeah.
It's really insane.
And how detrimental that is to our overall health.
Extremely.
I mean, the skyrocketing of anxiety, depression, substance abuse, all those things that went up with the pandemic. I think part of it was just the stress of
For sure.
the situation. But then I think another huge part of it was we're isolated socially.
Locked up.
And we need other people. We need social connection to feel our best.
Which is why I'm not a fan of homeschooling, but that's a whole different topic.
Mm.
Yeah. I think kids need that interaction, you know?
Yeah,
If you don't use it, you lose it.
true.
Yeah. Wow. Very, very cool. Okay. So you probably work with a lot of athletes, right?
Some athletes,
Yeah.
for sure.
That are looking to enhance what? Focus, vision, cognitive, probably like I'm thinking of Tom Brady and
He actually does neurofeedback.
he does, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of him and LeBron.
yeah.
Probably the two athletes that I know that really spend money on their body, on their brain, on their health,
Mm-hmm.
right? My question is, how can someone who's not an athlete, who doesn't have that kind of money, but wants to better themselves, how can they do it? What's the step for them to work with someone like you?
I mean, I think it's something that we're seeing like the more like just like any new technology, things come down in costs. And I think like neurofeedback at this point, is something that is accessible to the everyday person. There's different issues as far as sometimes insurance covers it. Usually it doesn't. So I work with people out of pocket. But, regardless of whether, sometimes with neurofeedback, people do spend thousands and thousands of dollars on, big systems. And there's lots of pro sports teams and athletes that utilize it within their training. But then there's also clinics that work with kids with autism and families that might not have a ton of money. So I think there is a way for people to access these different tools. The reason, like going back to what you're asking as far as why athletes are utilizing neurofeedback, it's partly due to like the focus, shifting attention, reaction time, all those things. But then you can actually also improve people's motor skills. You can actually work the area of the brain called the motor cortex that controls our hand-eye coordination, our ability to, move our body. So you can
without
actually sharpen
physically like doing anything physical.
there are different things, different neurotechnologies where different like headsets that stimulate those areas of the brain while
That's
people
crazy.
and you can actually increase their ability to learn different motor tasks,
Wow.
which is pretty wild.
Explain to me exactly what's being done. Are you just sending electrical pulses to the brain? Is that what's happening?
So with neurofeedback, it's simply collecting what the brain is doing and then
Okay.
giving feedback. So like people would be hooked up to these electrodes and then they're playing like a game, like a video game on the screen.
Got it.
And they're seeing their character on the screen when their brain is getting into the desired state. Say we're training someone to focus. So when they get into that focused state, their character is going to accelerate. It's going to run faster. The audio is going to get louder.
That's genius.
When their brain deviates from that state, they start daydreaming, thinking about what they're going to have for lunch today.
Right.
Then the character slows down, the audio gets quiet. So it's providing the brain real time, hence the term feedback. It's giving the brain
Wow.
feedback on when it's doing well versus when it needs to self-adjust. And
Got
this is
it.
within 100 milliseconds. So that's quicker than our conscious mind can even process information. So it goes back to
Wow.
like hypnosis, talking about the subconscious mind. Neurofeedback is very much getting to that very root cause, the biological root, where it's not even necessarily a conscious process of people figuring it out. It's kind of on a core level. Their brain just figures out what it needs to do, the state it needs to be in order to get the reward. So through operant conditioning, the brain gets more and more able to create those healthier brain waves the more it's rewarded.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really amazing how you can get all that information by putting a piece of technology on someone's head and having them play a video game.
Yeah. Yeah. And how it's not even inputting anything external. It's simply, it's like
Right.
putting a mirror up to someone's brain, because we usually don't have feedback. Like if we move our body and we like look at ourselves, I can see how my hand is moving in space and it makes sense.
Right.
Whereas we don't see how our brain is functioning. So neurofeedback really does provide that mirror to tell the brain exactly, hey, good job, keep doing what you're doing, or no, you're not doing it right. You need to self-adjust. You need to rewire.
Wow, man, that's really cool. Let me get a little deep with you.
Sure, I'm all about that.
I want to know, what is your big dream / big why? And in that same token, what is your 5-year vision plan? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see what you're doing? What are you trying to accomplish?
Well, really, the thing is that so many people, I mean, I'm guessing, have you ever heard, like prior to us connecting, had you ever heard about brain mapping or neurofeedback?
No, I have not.
Okay,
I
so
mean,
that's
maybe in like a movie or
Like a
something.
movie.
You know what I mean?
And-
But nothing concrete, nothing, you
Right.
know, tangible like you.
yeah, and that's like most people.
Yeah.
Most people that I talk to. So how are you going to benefit from something that you don't even know what it is or how it can help you? So my biggest goal here is bringing these tools that have traditionally been hidden away in research labs or small clinics,
Right.
and really bringing them to the mainstream wellness, peak performance community.
Awareness.
So like building up like an actual brain optimization brand, because I feel like it really hasn't been done.
Man, that's so cool.
Yeah. So first is just, getting people to have more awareness of what these things are, that they exist, and be able to actually utilize this stuff and improve their lives. And then really just getting it to the most amount of people possible. I think that's really my why, is that I think me personally experiencing the benefits, working with so many other people, dealing with
Right.
issues, some similar to what I've dealt with, others like drug addiction or substance use that I haven't necessarily dealt with, but seeing both myself and other people have these transformations and just wondering, why do more people not know about this? Why is this stuff buried away? Why is this not just every day? Just why is it not at, just in the same way that we go to gyms and work our
Right.
body out?
Right.
Why don't we train our mind? So that realization there, I think that's what drives me to bring these modalities to the mainstream community and just build up a brand around this. Teach people, like my main message for people is that no matter where they're at currently, that regardless of what they're struggling with, whatever they've been stuck with for however many years, that it is possible to build a better brain. And I want to empower people, give people the tools to do so.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. In terms of 5 years, the way I see this thing going is just, building a brand, speaking on stages, getting a bigger audience. And, I think like celebrities, athletes, like people who are speaking out about neurofeedback training, about the benefits they've received, I think that's doing a huge service to just getting more mainstream awareness.
Yeah.
And the more that I can do that and leverage that and just build a brand around this, hopefully make a lot of money, help a lot of people. I don't think the two have to be unrelated. So that's
Do you have a
the
YouTube
goal.
channel?
Yeah, I do have a YouTube channel.
Cool.
Yeah, it's Neuroflex Tech. I need to be doing more stuff on YouTube. But
You should.
Yeah.
You should be showing yourself working with a client and then showing their transformation.
yeah.
That would really captivate people.
People love the before and after brain scans.
Yes.
Because it's like the tangible evidence that they're actually improving.
Right.
Yeah.
Quick question. What's the rate of a relapse? Is that like even a thing?
So the reason that neurofeedback people that I work with, there's a minimum of like 3 months that we work together where people are doing sessions.
Right.
Usually 3, 4, 5 sessions a week.
Okay.
And
that many. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I send people the equipment so they're able to do it on their own.
Got it.
But the reason being is that,
That's a moneymaker for you.
yeah.
Find
the
a way to
scale.
build your own equipment. Yeah. And
Exactly.
sell it.
Yeah, for sure. But really, I think like being able to, or the reason I was saying is that because in order to get long lasting improvements, it's something that just like getting in good physical shape,
Right.
you're not going to work out really hard one time and just get jacked
No,
overnight.
I'm in there 5 days a week,
5
buddy.
days. So you get it.
I
You
was
get
there
it.
7:30 this morning.
Exactly. So that's exact
Yeah.
same way that people are able to optimize their own brain functioning. It is hard work. It's not as
Yeah.
simple as just popping a pill. But if people do a protocol, they do a round of 20, 30, 40 sessions, the research tends to say that those improvements are very long lasting.
Got it.
So if people just do a few sessions, they might feel a little bit better, feel more relaxed, but their brain's going to just kind of default back to its normal state
Got it.
because the brain loves that homeostasis, what it's always known.
It's comfortable.
It's comfortable. So in
Yeah.
order to push past that and really develop these new cognitive abilities, it's something that people need to stick with, be persistent with it, be dedicated, and over time they will get the results, and those results will last, barring any sort of head injury or other sort of thing in their life. You're not necessarily protected against that, but
How long is each session?
each session's about 30 minutes.
That's not bad.
No,
It's not too bad.
no, and you're playing a video game, so it's
Right.
or you can stream Netflix and stuff. So it's you're not really even taking any time out of your day.
Right.
You're just doing something you otherwise would have been doing anyway.
And you're wearing something, right? It's on your head.
Exactly. Yep. It's like a headset, and you place an electrode at a specific location. We'll like rotate which areas
Right.
of the brain we train. But yeah, man.
Man, that's awesome. I would love to work with you.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. I would love to know the parts of my brain that require improving.
Yeah. And that's
know?
the thing. Everyone's like, no matter where you're at. I mean, obviously you're very high functioning. You're killing it with different
Thank you, man. I
business.
appreciate that.
But it's like you understand that it's like there's still that next level.
Oh, there's always
and
a next
everyone
gear.
has
Yeah.
everyone has that. It's in the same way people still go to the gym even if they're in great shape. We can always get stronger,
Always.
leaner, meaner, all that stuff. So same deal with the brain.
That is awesome, Toby. Toby, where can people find you? What's your IG? What's your website? Your YouTube? Your X? No longer Twitter.
Yeah,
Your X.
Right. X.
and
Yeah, I
all
gotta get
that.
adjusted to that.
Go
Yeah.
ahead and speak right into your camera.
Yeah. So best place I would say on Instagram, shoot me a DM at Neuroflex, NEUROFLEX. The website's neuroflex.tech, www.neuroflex.tech. The YouTube channel is at Neuroflex Tech. So any way that you want to reach out, I'd be happy to continue this conversation with people who found this interesting, who have any questions, comments. I'm happy to engage with people. So
I'll make sure to put a link to all that down below.
cool, man.
I'm giving you a minute. No, let's take your hand.
Oh,
They got
I
a
didn't
problem.
know if you
No, we're good. I'm giving you a
Yeah.
minute. Go ahead and whatever you want to say to the world,
Yeah.
whatever you want to, whatever type of message that you want to put out there, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say that, like I was saying before, just that I think all comes back, like coming full circle to what we started talking about with like fixed versus growth mindsets, where if people really believe that their brain can change, which is the truth, that's what we know with new neuroplasticity research. They know, if you really believe that you can build a better brain, that it is possible, and you have access now to all of these tools more so than ever before in history, where there are all these technologies, these tools to enhance our cognition. So if you're able to actually apply these different things in your life, issues like depression, anxiety, other mental health issues, substance abuse, all of these things, I think you can put in your past, and your family members can benefit, your friends can benefit. So I would say no matter where you're at, you can build a better brain. It just comes down to first believing that you can do so and then putting in the hard work to get there.
I love that. I love what you said, that you can put this in your past.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, it's in the same way of like, if we have an infection, take a round of antibiotics, and
Right.
then we don't always have the flu or whatever, right? Where it's like people that struggle. I think like we're going to see in the future with psychedelics, with neurotherapy, with this stuff, hypnosis, all these different tools, as more people harness them,
Right.
I think we're going to start seeing that people have issues, mental health issues, and they're able to get rid of them and not go their entire life struggling
Without a pill.
without a pill. Yeah. Or maybe that pill will be psilocybin.
Yeah.
But not
It's a
having
good
to
pill.
take that's a good pill.
It's a good
not
pill.
not having to take like long-term,
Microdosing.
hard drugs. Microdosing. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a fan.
So am I.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Toby, Thank you very, very much for coming out here. I learned a lot today, and I hope you guys did as well. Go follow Toby. Go check out his YouTube. The man is very, very smart, and you can learn a lot from him. Toby, once again, thank you very much, man.
Leo, I appreciate it. I appreciate
you, man.
all your insightful questions, and
Thank you, man.
really enjoyed the conversation.
My pleasure.
Awesome.
Guys, how awesome was that? If you are trying to change your state, if you're trying to become the best version of yourselves, you got to use all the tools possible. We're in 2024. We have modern technology that can literally help you change the frequency of your brain. Make use of it. Find the right people to help you achieve what you want. Toby can definitely be someone in your path that can get you there. All right, guys, thank you very much for listening. See you guys next time.
This is the Leo Climaco Podcast.